What's the biggest bullet you've ever dodged? Grandma got a flat tire, pulled over. As she was on the side fixing the tire, her car was hit and totaled. Right from her hands. She was okay. I used to roller skate as a kid outside my house down a hill and never wore any kind of protection. Suddenly one day, before I go out, my older brother tells me I can't leave unless I put on a helmet, which is weird since he's never cared before. Anyways, I do it, and that day, for the first time ever, I fell and landed on the back of my head so hard that the helmet cracked. That crack would have probably been my skull had I not wore it. Years ago I was on a first meet for an internet date. We met at a bar and the bartender carded us. Even though we were both older, they were doing stings in the area, so he was carding every single person. Handed mine right over, but my date was an ass about it. The bartender checked mine and handed it back to me. He checked his, and rather than handing it back to him, he placed it on the bar right in front of me. It had the sexual offender stamp on it. The guy picked it up, looked at the bartender, looked at me, and then got up and walked out. I immediately googled him. He was on the registry and had been in prison for rape. Lesson learned. Always Google. The bartender and I are still friends. I was out at the bar with my friends and feeling tired. When I said I was leaving to turn in early, they all, good-naturedly, gave me shit. That night they all got $1,500 tickets for pissing in public on their walk home from the bar. Not exactly life-changing, but not a small bullet either. Stopped duck hunting with a guy because he would put his 12 gauge Remington 1100 on his shoulders with no thought to where the barrel was pointing. I'd tell him to point it the other way, or I'd stop and move to the other side, but he'd shift it around and it would end up pointing at my head when we were walking. I told him I would not hunt with him anymore, and he was pissed at me and called me a fucking pussy and that there was no danger because the safety was on. A couple weeks later he told me he had an accidental discharge with the gun on his shoulder. This one just materialized yesterday, actually. About a year ago at my job I was offered to switch from my current team, where I was established for a few years, had seniority, etc., for a new department that just started to kick it off, write processes, basically start from square one. A lot more work for the same amount of pay. I figured fuck it and went. Yesterday they announced that they just closed the physical HQ office for my old department, and everyone in that entire part of the company would have to either move to one of 14 random states that we can't pick. It's chosen basically by a roulette wheel for where you're going, to a local office, or they're going to be fired on June 22nd. Thankfully, since I'm part of the new department, I wasn't included in that mandate. Phew. Sold my bar and grill business in August 2019. I was working in an amusement park during college summers. I used to come home from college on a Friday afternoon and usually pick up a Friday shift as well as a full weekend during the month that the park was only open on weekends. I was a manager at my other attraction here. One particular Friday, I got home and was too exhausted to do a Friday night shift, so I bagged it and decided to just work the Saturday/Sunday and be back at school on Monday. I got a call from a good friend and coworker telling me that our attraction was in flames, there were casualties, and a couple of my friends and coworkers were missing. 7 people lost their lives. My coworker, assistant manager, went back in and pulled people out to safety. He was okay. I was in shock for a few days. Had I done what I usually do, I would have been there in charge, and I know I would have gone in to help. It could have been an entirely different situation. So yeah, I dodged a bullet, but a devastating event happened. I'll never know. I was a teen driver not paying attention at an intersection at the crest of a hill with low visibility when the light turned green. The car behind me honked, and just as I was about to go, a truck barreled through the red light on the perpendicular road at decidedly ludicrous speed. If I had been paying attention and gone when the light turned green, I very likely would have been T-boned to death. Close street call I've ever had. I was on the train in Brooklyn a few years ago. Next to me was this man who had a big ass house tool in his book bag. I think it was a hammer. I'm shoulder to fucking shoulder next to this guy and I knew something was up. He was moving very oddly. It was just the vibe that this man is up to something. I decided that once we got to the next stop, I would get off the train and catch the next train, which I did. 30 minutes later this guy gets off the train at my stop and starts attacking people. He went after cops and was shot to death. If I didn't get off that train and instead got off with him, I might be dead. When I was 16 I used a fake ID to go out clubbing. The legal age in Ireland is 18, so I passed for it and did it all the time. One night I felt sick and decided to leave my friends and go home. I knew there was a taxi rank in a small alley somewhere and was looking for it when an older guy, 20s probably, offered to show me. The alley he brought me down was not the taxi rank. Once I realized I tried to go back, but he pushed me against a wall and told me I was not going anywhere. I just remember not being able to scream. I just froze. It felt like forever, but probably only a few seconds later some guys I went to school with just happened to walk by the alley, also looking for taxis, and saw me. One of them yelled out my name, and then when he realized the guy had his arm across my throat he went mental. The guy jumped the wall at the end of the alley and I just burst into tears. My schoolmates took me home and made sure I was okay. I am in my mid-30s now, with 3 daughters, and I still shudder when I think of this. Say hello to your 13-year-old Sorno. Never had a DNA test done so fast in my life. In 1994, I was on a business trip in LA. I stopped for a pack of cigarettes before getting on the Santa Monica freeway. The Northridge earthquake happened while I was in line. Parts of the freeway collapsed. I quit smoking after that pack. I was out kayaking on a lake and several bullets whizzed by me. There was a distinct crack bus sound as it went by. I think some people were just out plinking in their backyard, adjacent to the lake, and didn't think a backstop was necessary. This also happened to me a few weeks later, when I was paddling on a small stream. Bullets whizzed by above the bank, just over my head. I don't think anyone knew I was there either time. Regardless, when you go out and shoot stuff, make sure there's a backstop, FFS. Also, I don't know how big the bullets were, so I'm unsure which was the biggest bullet dodged. Got chucked off a horse. Hit the ground so hard I felt my soul leave my body. Started to cough up blood, and was having trouble breathing within 30 seconds. Rushed to the hospital and the doctors were running down the hallway with me on a backboard. Doctors running is always a bad sign. I was sure I was dying. Come to find out that I broke 2 bones in my back and collapsed a lung. Once I was more with it, a nurse handed me my helmet and said it's a good job you were wearing this. It had been cracked almost in half. If I hadn't been wearing it, that would have been my head, and I'd most certainly be dead or permanently disabled. Wear your helmet, kids. I took my wife to an indoor shooting range in 2014. I had been at this range many times, and safety was always their top priority. They made you sit through a safety video, take a quiz, and get a temporary certification before they allowed you onto the range. Place got really busy and their safety policy became less stringent as time went on. I noticed that the lane next to us had 3 people in it, already a violation. 2 big guys and 1 tiny woman, probably her in 20s. They were handing her various firearms and laughing when she couldn't handle the recoil. Big violation there and incredibly irresponsible. This girl was muzzle sweeping everyone, another huge violation. I got a bad feeling, told my wife to pack it up because we were leaving. As soon as we started walking away, bang, that girl had fired a round right where my wife was standing just a few seconds prior. Asterisk I told the range officers that they needed to get in there and do something about those idiots and that we weren't coming back. I have only been to a range a few times since that happened and now I don't even go at all. Too many idiots. I matched with a guy on Tinder who played for the Atlanta Falcons. He was really charming and seemed nice. He asked me to fly down to Atlantic City for Memorial Day weekend, said he would pay for everything, airfare, hotel, food, etc. But I had never met him before, and he refused to give me his phone number. I was uncomfortable flying to meet a stranger, so I told him no. 2 weeks later he was on the news for kicking and killing his girlfriend's dog. 2005, my friend and I evacuated New Orleans 2 days before Hurricane Katrina and drove to Mississippi with the little money we had. We were trying to decide on where to stay for the night, and it was between a mid-range hotel or the really cheap motel. Decided to spend a little more for the hotel. During the night the eye of the storm came through Mississippi and flattened the roof of the motel we decided against.